Hey everyone, did you know that some of the world's most impressive structures aren't tall skyscrapers or massive stadiums, but buildings buried deep under Earth? It may be a super high-tech particle collider or a top-secret military base. Some of these structures look absolutely incredible. Join me for today's video. I'm counting down 15 of the most unique underground structures in the world. Starting with number 15, the Gjøvik Olympic Cavern Hall. Norway is a very mountainous place, and traditionally locals have built buildings known as cavern halls by blasting into the rock. As a result, when planning began for the 1994 Lillehammer Olympics, the decision was made to build a sports facility 120 meters under a mountain. Considered to be the world's largest underground auditorium and largest public cavern hall, the 7,000 square foot facility features a swimming pool, a cafeteria, and a hockey rink, with room for over 5,500 people. Number 14. The Mithraeum. Discovered in 1931 during a building project near Rome's Circus Maximus, the Mithraeum is a temple dedicated to the cult of the god of Mithras. Mithraism was a religion that was separate from Rome's state pagan religion, and in its early years it competed with Christianity for followers before eventually sort of fizzling out. The Mithraeum buried here served as a place of prayer, sacrifice, and ritual meals of bread and wine for between 30 to 40 cult followers at a time. Today, it is fully open to the public and can be seen on an appointment-only basis. Number 13. Coober Pedy. While most people don't really live underground full-time, the inhabitants of Coober Pedy are a notable exception. It's located in the middle of the Australian outback. This 1,500-person opal mining town is known for its scorching temperatures. This makes living above ground nearly unbearable, and so in order to save on the air conditioning bills, many people have created cave dugouts underground. Thanks to the ingenuity of the residents, many have running water, electricity, and even Wi-Fi. And it's this work that's also allowed for the creation of underground churches, motels, and a workshop in the town. Number 10. Jælava Air Base. While air bases are pretty common, they aren't usually located underground. Yet that's exactly where you can find the one top-secret Cold War relic that is the Jælava Air Base. Was built between 1948 and 1968 in the former Yugoslavia. It currently sits on the border between Croatia and Bosnia, and by all accounts, it was an incredible feat of military engineering. Costing the modern equivalent of over $78 billion, it was built to act as a strategic command center in the event of an attack on Yugoslavia by the West. Fit with 5 runways, numerous defense outposts, and a long-range radar early warning system akin to NORAD, it had all the trappings of a top-tier military base. While everything was underground, it had 4 exits where a jet could fly out of and be stocked up with about 60 Soviet MiG-21 aircraft. In case of a nuclear attack, it could be sealed off in order to keep those inside alive and be able to fight. In fact, it was so impenetrable that it's able to withstand a force of a direct hit by a Nagasaki-sized nuclear bomb, and so well stocked it could safely house up to 1,000 people for up to 30 days. While Jælava was thankfully never used during the Cold War, it soon took on a function that its designers didn't account for. That's because after the fall of Yugoslavia, it was not used in the fight against the West, but in battles against former countrymen. An epicenter of fighting in the Yugoslav Civil War, Jælava saw intensive use throughout 1991. When the Yugoslav People's Army withdrew from the area, they littered the compound with explosives and blew it up so it could no longer be used. While enough explosives were used to incapacitate the structure, it can still be visited today. However, due to unexploded mines, dangerous levels of harmful chemicals, and tension surrounding the border, I wouldn't recommend going. However, it's worth noting that this may change soon too. That's because in recent years there have been calls to revitalize the now run-down airbase. The hope is that it could either be converted into something that can actually be used for air travel or be turned into a protected and landmine-free tourist site. Yet only time will tell whether or not this revitalization will actually take place. Number 9. The Large Hadron Collider. So, of all the underground structures out there, the one that may just be the most useful on this list is the Large Hadron Collider. It's located on the border between Switzerland and France, near the Swiss city of Geneva. This thing is a massive project, built over the span of 10 years. It required the efforts of over 10,000 scientists and engineers from hundreds of universities and laboratories over 100 countries. And the end result is what is now the world's largest and most powerful particle collider. But first, what exactly is that? Well, in short, a particle collider is a machine that allows two particles to be shot at each other at super high speeds, allowing scientists to record the impact, observe and analyze the results, and then make scientific findings. While more than 30,000 of these machines exist in the world, the Large Hadron Collider is by far the most incredible of them all. It's buried 175 meters underground, and it's essentially a 27-kilometer-long circle that's powerful enough to allow beams to travel at close to the speed of light before colliding. Now, this is possible because the entire tunnel is essentially a massive vacuum, with all its strength coming from its magnetic field. These are created by over 1,200 super-strong coils, each of them which are 15 meters long and weigh 35 tons. And to make sure that temperatures are optimal for experiments, the collider is generally maintained at a very low temperature of negative 271 degrees Celsius. For reference, that is colder than outer space, and it's crucial because it allows the magnets to act as effective superconductors. Best of all, while the facility only opened in 2008, it's managed to facilitate some of the most important scientific experiments to date. For example, in 2008, the facility was used to create a microscopic black hole that were designed to allow physicists to detect new dimensions. Then, in 2012, it made a real name for itself when it detected the long-sought-after Higgs boson, which was crucial in explaining how particles acquire mass. More recently, in 2024, it began work on proving the existence of magnetic monopoles, which is important since finding these would be an incredible breakthrough in the field of high-energy physics. So, I think it's fair to say the LHC is easily one of Europe's most important modern contributions to the global scientific community. Number 8. The Raven Rock Mountain Complex. If a nuclear World War III were to happen, one thing would be certain: the majority of the world's population would be toast. However, another certainty is that the same fate would not apply to the President of the United States. That's because if it were to happen, he would be able to shelter with other top political and military officials in a compound known as the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. It's located high up in the mountains of President Biden's home state of Pennsylvania. It was approved by President Truman in 1950 and built in 1951 and 53 in order to serve as a center of command in the event of a nuclear catastrophe. Nicknamed the Underground Pentagon, it's got an emergency operations center for the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. In total, it consists of 5 separate 3-story buildings that are sheltered underneath rock of the mountain. And these not only contain the basics such as power, water, and air, but also facilitate a medical and dental clinic, fire department, post office, dining facilities, snack bar, dormitories, chapel, barbershop, fitness center, bowling alley, and believe it or not, even a Starbucks in there. Well, since 2 on-site power plants make it completely self-sufficient, it can operate for long periods of time without any outside access. According to the United States government, that lifetime is a minimum of about 30 days in a completely sealed-off position, and in case of an emergency, a total of 3,000 people can be accommodated within there. Of course, this leaves us with one important question. Has there ever been an event important enough for the Raven Rock Mountain Complex to actually be used? Well, there haven't been any major nuclear attacks since Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but 9/11 was pivotal enough for the compound to spring into action. While not all officials were whisked away there, Vice President Dick Cheney was housed in a complex away from President Bush, keeping both of them separated and safe in case 9/11 led to a more numerous string of attacks. Thankfully, it hasn't been deemed necessary to use it since then, although if things keep heating up around the world, the day for the Raven Rock to once again open its doors may arrive sooner rather than later. Moving on to number 7, the Mausoleum of the First Qing Emperor. Of all the structures on this list, the one that just may be the most chock full of valuables is the Mausoleum of the First Qing Emperor. Found in China's Shanxi province near the ancient capital of Chang'an, it was built from 246 to 208 BC in order to be the resting place of the first Qing emperor. In many respects, he is one of China's greatest national heroes. After all, it was the first Qing emperor who unified China, began construction of the Great Wall, and notably to our story, prepared for death by constructing a 50-square-kilometer funerary compound underneath a 76-meter-tall pyramid. Now, for years, this tomb had sat forgotten. However, on March 29th of 1974, a group of local farmers were digging a well, when out of nowhere they uncovered the roof of the structure. The inside was absolutely incredible. The tomb had a massive terracotta army consisting of approximately 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, and over 500 horses. The idea was that this would be the army that would protect the deceased emperor in the afterlife, and due to them being styled after Chinese soldiers of the era, they revealed a lot about how Chinese troops looked at the time. If that wasn't crazy enough, it wasn't a simple copy and paste kind of a job. Instead, every single statue has been found to be totally unique, right down to the facial features, hairstyling, clothing, and pose. Unsurprisingly, UNESCO has since classified the mausoleum as a World Heritage Site, yet it turns out that not all of its treasures have been uncovered. That's because the tomb itself remains untouched, lying within an inner wall and beneath a four-sided pyramid mound that was originally landscaped to appear as a low wooded mountain. It reportedly is home to a vast underground palace. In fact, according to the historical record, about 700,000 conscripted workmen labored for more than 36 years to complete it, and is reportedly home to 3 subterranean streams, models of pavilions, and even offices filled with precious stones and rarities. Of course, this raises the question, why haven't we gone inside? Well, the main reason is because to date, there's no way to ensure that the things inside won't be damaged if the chamber is unsealed and excavated. Therefore, it's only when that time comes that the rest of the mausoleum will be explored. Number 6. The Beijing Underground City. Nicknamed the Underground Great Wall, the Beijing Underground City is one of Beijing's most important Cold War relics. You see, back in 1969, China and the Soviet Union were undergoing a severe political spat. Former allies were bickering on everything from borders to political policy, and this in turn led Chinese leader Mao Zedong to worry that the Soviet Union may decide to send a nuclear bomb his way. While this worry was likely overblown, it didn't prevent the construction of a massive underground bomb shelter beneath Beijing. This was meant to house all of Beijing's 6 million residents in the event of a catastrophe. It was designed to withstand nuclear, biochemical, and conventional attacks. Now, in terms of design, it was pretty impressive. The complex was equipped with facilities such as restaurants, clinics, schools, theaters, factories, a roller skating rink, grain and oil warehouses, and of all things, a mushroom cultivation farm. There were also almost 70 potential sites where water wells could easily be dug if needed, while a series of tunnels are believed to have connected the complex to various important sites. In order to protect those inside, it also had a very elaborate ventilation system, complete with 2,300 shafts. They could be easily sealed off to protect the tunnel's inhabitants from poisonous gas. There also seems to have been a sense of urgency in the city's construction. After all, the tunnels were built by more than 300,000 local citizens on a volunteer basis, even with school students being conscripted in. If that wasn't crazy enough, the government was so gung-ho on the project that they destroyed centuries-old city walls, towers, and gates in order to supply the necessary construction material. Now, while the city thankfully never had to be used, it's also never been fully abandoned. While in a state of slow decay, water leakage and pest control are still conducted on a regular basis. It's also worth noting that for a time there was an attempt to open it up as a tourist attraction. While only a small circular portion of the city was opened, it was massively popular with foreign tourists and showed several interesting features, including a fully functional silk factory and slogans such as "Dig deep, store grain, don't claim to be an emperor," and "For the people, prepare for war, prepare for famine." However, the site was closed for renovations in 2008, and ever since, it's remained shuttered off to the public on what is likely a permanent basis. Number 5. Private doomsday bunkers. So, given the unstable state of the world, there often seems to be something that threatens to simply end it. In response, ever since the beginning of the Cold War, nuclear bunkers have become more and more commonplace in many countries. And while major governments have been some of the first to go ahead and put them up, some of the most impressive actually come from the private sector. One of the most prestigious is Opidum, located in the Czech countryside in the proverbial middle of nowhere. It's not much at first glance. From the ground, its high walls obstruct the view. From the air, it appears to be simply a large administration center. However, if you go down into it, you'll discover a 323,000 square foot state-of-the-art complex located mostly underground. While it is not yet complete, it does look quite promising, containing multiple high-end apartments in the $8 to $60 million range without upgrades. Luxury features include an underground garden with simulated natural light, a spa, swimming pool, cinema, library, offices, medical and surgical facilities, and even a custom private vault. It will also have underground control systems to maintain communication with the outside world if needed, and it's got multiple high-security systems such as detection sensors, automated defense technology, and blast doors to protect those inside. However, if you don't have millions of dollars at your disposal, you can instead opt for a more discreet at-home approach. That's because there are thousands of bunkers out there that are located as cellars beneath homes of private citizens. While there are plenty of designs out there too, one of the most unique is offered by the Atlas Survival Shelters Company. Located in the U.S. state of Texas, it's structure that can be installed at home that features tamper-proofed air pipes, concrete reinforcement, and gas-tight doors. While this is enough to protect against intruders and many potential particles, if you want true nuclear protection, you've got to get an upgraded air filtration systems. In their most basic model, they can be purchased for a mere $20,000 in theory. However, if you want a solid level of comfort, the end price is a bit higher. Atlas also provides a wide range of models to suit your needs, with some of the most interesting being the round culvert, which is used in areas below the water table, and the Platinum series, which is a seemingly high-quality structure with luxury inclusions. And while the Atlas company is new, they've gotten quite a bit of attention, making it a solid choice. Number 4. Subtropolis. From the outside, Subtropolis doesn't really look all that notable. However, a trip into the inside reveals what just may be one of the most underappreciated spots on this list. With a total space of 55 million square feet, it holds the title for being the world's largest underground business complex. It's located in Kansas City, Missouri. It first got its start as the Bethany Falls Limestone Mine. However, by the 1940s, limestone production began to fall off, and in 1964, businessman Lamar Hunt decided that the space would be better used for non-mining purposes. Located 46 meters underground, Subtropolis is a massive grid of 5-meter-high and 15-meter-wide tunnels separated by a series of limestone pillars. Now, thanks to this grid layout, it's got about 16.9 kilometers of paved, illuminated roads going through it, alongside several kilometers of train tracks. Now, while it may seem a bit strange for a business to want to have underground facilities, there are some good reasons for having them. First and foremost, at just $2.25 per square foot, the rent here is relatively cheap, while its constant temperature between 18 and 21 degrees year-round allows businesses to not have to pay for climate control. For example, there's a facility in here where thousands of rolls of film are kept to prevent them from degrading, with this collection including classics such as The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. The National Archives and Records Association also keeps tax records and federal court documents here. For similar reasons, important institutions such as the U.S. Postal Service and environmental protection agencies have homes here, making it a rather important facility for America's national interests. It's also worth noting that other facilities like Subtropolis exist, just not on the same scale. For example, there's an abandoned mine in Butler, Pennsylvania, used by Corbis and the U.S. federal government for secure storage. There's also smaller limestone mines that are being looked at by companies with uses such as mushroom farming and crude oil stockpiling. In any case, if you want to visit Subtropolis, you're in luck, as there's a security detail that's open to the public between Monday and Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. However, if you want a good reason to be there, you can book a session at Jaeger's, which is a paintball place located in one of the caverns. Number 3. The Basilica Cistern. Istanbul is a city known for its rich history, but one significant spot that's often overlooked is located deep underground. Built all the way back in 532 AD by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, the cistern is essentially a massive structure for storing water for the royal palace and nearby buildings. While that may sound less than impressive, the Basilica Cistern is an architectural wonder, complete with massive stone columns and an arched roof. It is a stunning structure. In fact, it's nicknamed Yerbatan Sarai, or the Sunken Palace in Turkish, although it's known in English as the Basilica Cistern, because of the location on the site of an ancient basilica. Now, what makes the cistern incredible is the fact that it's not only beautiful, but has also continued to be relevant. After all, locals have drawn up fresh water and even fished from holes in their cellars for centuries. And even after the cistern was more or less forgotten by the outside world, it was found again by French traveler Petrus Gillius in 1565 in nearly perfect condition. From then on, the state has from time to time conducted renovation and restoration efforts, and in time it was even opened up to the public. In fact, even up until the 1980s, visitors could rent a rowboat to use in the cistern's waters. However, restorations dredged the silted-in floor and added lighting, elevated walkways, and a cafe in there for visitors, putting an end to the rowing. It's also worth noting that to this day, there's still one thing about the cistern that has puzzled historians. You see, at the far end of the cistern, there's two giant gorgon head pillar bases. It is suspected that they may have been pulled out of an older pagan temple where motifs of the famous Gorgon Medusa were used as a protective emblem. It's also possible that the upside-down and sideways placement of the faces was a deliberate display of the power of the new Christian empire and its triumph over paganism. However, to this day, nobody knows for sure. Number 2. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. In northern Norway, there's a remote island known as Spitsbergen, and while it may not look like much from the shore, it's home to one of the most important and well-protected underground complexes on the planet. It holds a grand total of 1.1 million different types of seeds, with each type being stored in at least one 500-seed container. Now, to date, over 1.2 million 500-seed samples are stored in Svalbard, with this representing more than 6,000 plant species. If demand requires, that figure can be up to a maximum of 4.5 million seed samples, meaning that it's just over 25% full. Of course, this leaves us with the question, why does Norway have all these seeds in the first place? Well, in 2001, the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture called for a location for international access to seed samples. After a lot of campaigning by a team led by conservationists Kari Fowler and Jeffrey Houghton, the Norwegian government agreed to host a seed storage facility. Construction began in 2006, and in February of 2008, the vault officially opened its doors. In terms of function, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault is like a bank for seeds. All the seeds are owned by depositors, and generally speaking, these depositors are gene banks who are looking to preserve different seed samples. The overriding idea behind this project is to preserve the Earth's biodiversity and have backup seeds on ready in case crops or plants in an area are destroyed due to wars, acts of terrorism, or natural catastrophes. When that happens, depositors could withdraw the seeds in a way similar to how someone would withdraw money from a bank account, making the whole thing streamlined and efficient. Now, in order to keep all of them safe, the vault stores the samples in a series of frozen rooms that are located 120 meters deep into a rock face. Now, unsurprisingly, the whole facility is strictly climate-controlled, making it a safe place for long-term storage. Yet, perhaps the coolest thing about the Seed Vault is that it's a humanitarian project. Despite considerable upkeep costs, the Norwegian government and partner agencies run it for free, and all depositors don't have to pay a thing to make use of it. The end result is a seed vault that's not only comprehensive, but that has seeds from almost every country. It's because of this humanitarian heritage that the founders were awarded the 2024 World Food Prize. Number 1. Derinkuyu. Across the planet, most people wake up with light streaming through their bedroom window. However, in the Turkish city of Derinkuyu, that was simply impossible. It's located 85 meters below ground. This underground city was, at its peak, home to a whopping 20,000 people. Yet despite it being an incredible settlement with a lot of history, not all the specs are well known. Ventilated by a total of more than 15,000 shafts, most are about 10 centimeters wide and reach down into the first and second levels of the city, allowing for good airflow all the way down to the 8th level. However, a total of 18 levels exist, with the very lowest levels being mainly used for storage, wells, and, curiously enough, a dungeon. The creation of such a wonderful city was possible thanks to the area's unique geography. You see, the rocky areas of the region consist of tuff, which is a substance that's made primarily out of volcanic ash. Now, fortunately, tuff is very easy to dig, due to the fact that, rather ironically, it's not very tough. While this does have some downsides, after all, the softness of the stone does make cave-ins a big risk, but thankfully Derinkuyu's large support pillars have prevented that. Now, the actual date of the foundation of the city is still up for debate. Some scholars argue that the oldest parts of the complex could have been dug out by about 2000 BC by the Hittites. Others instead attribute the city to the Phrygians, who could have built it around 700 BC. And still others claim that local Christians built the city in the 1st centuries AD. Yet no matter who actually founded it, what is clear is that Derinkuyu was used to the fullest extent by early Christians. Thankfully, in the later years of the Roman Empire, these Christians were later granted freedom of religious rights, and in time were subsumed by the Byzantine Christians. Yet that didn't put them out of the woods. After all, by the 7th century, Islamic civilizations were also conducting raids here. Derinkuyu, it saw use all the way up to the 20th century. However, when the Greeks who hid in it were expelled from the country in 1923, the subterranean city was closed up and forgotten. However, in 1963, it was rediscovered after a local man found a secret underground room while renovating his basement. This room led to the city of Derinkuyu, and ever since, there's been increased archaeological work and tourism in this area. In 1985, the Cappadocia area containing both the ferry chimneys and underground city became a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and today has become a popular tourist site. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.